Well, I'm in Exmouth Market and just coming up to a shop which says that it's a pop-up think tank, Popse, and outside I find my friend Nick Temple and also Henry Hemming, who has written a great book called Together. And I'll come and have a chat with them, but I'll just look inside and see what's been going on. Wow, you're ready for pop-up think tanking. Some people coming in a minute.
We certainly are. We're making our own bunting with our Popse postcards. There
Okay.
we go. Beautiful Popse postcards.
Right. And what's going to happen when they all turn up?
Every day we do a daily download where we ask our theme lead just to do a quick roundup of the discussions we've had and just get people more engaged, more involved in the discussion. So we never know quite who's going to turn up, how many people are going to turn up, but we generally have fun and move the debates on a bit.
Right, I'll go and ask Nick how it all got started. So, Nick, tell me more about Popse. How did it get started? What are you trying to do?
Okay, well, I think it started like all good things over a slightly drunken pint. And the real idea is, I suppose, that the social enterprise world, a lot of it's focused on survival and delivery really at the moment. And there's not much thinking going on, not much strategic forward thinking going on. The other side to it was that there were a few of us who were going to be unaffiliated to an organisation by choice or circumstance, so we're a bit freer to say the radical things, the challenging things, and have some fun. And also to do that in a way which also kind of not only regenerated, I suppose, the social enterprise community, but also hopefully this physical community in Exmouth in a space that had been empty for 6 months.
And over the week, people are coming in for chats about different themes.
That's right. So we've got people leading different work areas, all about social enterprise, social investment, community and big society, measuring social impact, and really trying to move the debates on, provide some fresh thinking, and we'll produce reports at the end of the week that we'll deliver to specific audiences to really try and push things on and make some useful, constructive contributions.
Thanks. And Henry, let's make sure people have a look at the book together.
All important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you were leading a discussion about community and big society.
Exactly.
And just tell us a bit about your take on community in the book, and then perhaps about the kind of discussions that triggered this morning.
Sure. Well, in the book, one of the things I wanted to look at was different understandings of community over the years and especially today. And one of the things that I try to put forward in the book is a slightly broader understanding of community. So one which is not based exclusively in the notion of community of place. The idea that the entire nation is essentially a patchwork quilt, an enormous patchwork quilt made up of neighbouring geographic communities. What I found in the book was by meeting an enormous number of different societies, associations, clubs, from five-a-side football teams to local community interest groups, was that often the feelings and sense of identity and belonging within these actual groups were almost exactly equivalent to what you would find within a traditional geographic community. So, very simply, what I wanted to put forward was a broader understanding of community, and also, I suppose, to challenge exactly where our current notion of community comes from. And one of the things that I think is quite an easy thing to argue is that really what this comes back to is our relationship with a notion of a village, of an English village. And I think it begins in the late 19th century, this idea that when living in a city, one of the best ways to make sense of this otherwise quite chaotic urban existence is to think of the city as a series of villages, and to imagine that the way we should be living really is to have a village-like connection to the people around us. And I would argue that a lot of the localism narrative that we see today, and indeed big society, is based on that exact same principle. And I think it's high time that we can not so much move on and completely forget that idea, but to broaden our understanding of exactly how people are coming together and where they are getting their experience of community.
I'm particularly interested in networks, not just digital networks, but the networks everybody's been in for centuries, millennia, and so on. Is it helpful to think about networks of people, associations as network, groups as networks, interlocking networks, or is that too mechanistic in your mind?
I think it is and it isn't. This is the problem. And I think you can have a network which looks and sounds like a community, but perhaps is not. And what I put quite a lot of emphasis on in the book is communities of people who do either they actually end up meeting, or they are what Benedict Anderson would call an imagined community. So there is at least an intention to meet up. I think there is a danger that you can have, for example, a Facebook group, and you could from a distance say, that's a community in its own right. And I think, without sounding sort of too precious about the definition of it and what is and is not, I think some networks very much do fulfil the criteria of what we're talking about, while others do not.
And what popped up in the discussion this morning?
All sorts of good things. We had a really interesting range of people. We had, on the one hand, we had people talking about the need for more community justice, for example, which I think is a really interesting, possibly quite some tricky element of all this. The idea that stronger communities equals more justice doled out by neighbours, essentially, to people in their midst so they feel are not behaving correctly, and all the implications of that. I should add, this is not people coming together in this room saying we should not be doing this. The way it was described was someone suggesting this is something we should be doing more of. And I was intrigued by that. We were talking about the big society, different understandings of it, and we were talking about the future of community in all its many, many different forms.
Great. And what's going to happen now? Nick, I think I saw bottles of wine being uncorked.
Okay. Well, there may be a small amount of alcohol to fuel debate and push things on. So we have a wrap up at the end of each day, just to share the thinking from the day, reflect on it, get more insight and input, and then yes, a bit of celebration and a bit of relaxation, and then, as I say, after this week, hopefully what's been produced will have real impact moving forward.
And if people can't get here, they can have a look at popse.org.uk.
Absolutely, popse.org.uk, or they can find us on Twitter at Pop-Up Think Tank, or on Facebook, of course.
And we're going to see more of it later?
We shall see. We hadn't really thought beyond this week, but people seem to be interested in what will happen next time.
And of course, if somebody would like to sponsor or fund further pop-ups, that presumably won't be refused.
I couldn't possibly comment, David, but I think I'd have to speak to my collaborative, but I'm sure that would be welcome.